Hi, I'm Jackie Burns. I played Elphaba twice on Broadway and on the first and second national tour.
Hi, I'm DiNoia. I played Elphaba on Broadway on the second national tour and in multiple international productions over the years.
Hi, I'm Mary-Kate Morrisey, and I played Elphaba on the second national tour, and I'm currently the standby on Broadway.
I'm Alyssa Fox, and I'm currently playing Elphaba in Wicked's 20th year on Broadway. Woo! Hi, Elfies! Hi, Elfie! I'm absolutely thrillified to be here with all of you celebrating 2 decades of Wicked. I took on the role of Elphaba earlier this year, and I want to hear all about your experiences playing everyone's favorite green girl. Jackie,
Yes.
Do you remember when you got the call that you landed the role?
I do, actually. Yeah, I was much younger. It was many moons ago. I found out about 20 minutes after my final audition.
Oh my God.
And I've told this story a million times. I could not get a hold of anyone. I called my mother, she didn't pick up. I called my dad, he didn't pick up. I called my boyfriend, he didn't pick up. I called my best friend, she didn't pick up. For an hour, I sat with that news and I was like running around the house screaming like a crazy person. And then finally an hour later, my mom was the first person to call me back and she was like, "What's up? How are you?" And I was like, "I got Elphaba." And she freaked out. And I was very calm at that point. She was like, "How are you not freaking out?" I was like, "Well, I've had this news for an hour by myself." And so I've already had my excitement. And then that was for the first national. And then the same thing happened when I got the call that I was going to Broadway, that I called everybody and nobody picked up again.
Oh my goodness.
And
They need to turn their phones on.
Yes, I was like, "Take off Do Not Disturb already."
I do remember when I got my call to be Elphaba on Broadway for the first time, my first full contract, and I had my daughter who was about 7 months old at the time, and I was,
Wow.
yeah, I was in like motherland of like, what is my life right now? What's going to happen next? Am I ever going to work again? Who am I? You know, they told me that I was going to be Elphaba on Broadway. And it was nuts. I think it was all a blur, but
So you played Elphaba with a 7-month-year-old?
yeah, 7.5 when I went back.
You're a superhero.
For me, when I first got the call, I was very young and I had never really done anything big before. And I had gone in for auditions maybe 6 or 7 times and flew back and forth. I was living in Oklahoma City at the time. I got the call from the casting agent himself because I didn't have an agent at that time. I was doing everything kind of on my own because I was very
You're a
green.
baby.
I was just a little baby. I was struggling a lot in my life at that point, and getting that call like really changed my life. And this was 2010, and I got to be the understudy for Eden Espinosa.
Crazy.
So
And
cool.
it was very crazy. It was really, really cool. But it was such a special, life-changing moment to get that call and to get to join the San Francisco company was really incredible. And that feels like so long ago, and like I was a completely different person, but like we've come so far.
I know.
That's so exciting.
Look at you, 20th anniversary Elphaba.
I know, yeah.
It's been a long journey.
I remember when I got the call for the standby, I was with my mom, and that was awesome. But I remember when I got the call to take over on the tour, I was backpacking, and so I had done my final audition at the Gershwin in the rehearsal studio with Lisa with my backpack, and she was like, "Can you stay and read with this Nessa who's coming in?" And I was like, I really can't. Like, I'm on a flight to Copenhagen in like 3 hours. I gotta go now. So we were like in Copenhagen. We were going through all these different cities, staying in hostels, and we were in Prague at this bar called the Anonymous Bar. And I got a GIF from my agents of Kermit the Frog.
That's how you found out. That's how I found out.
We were in Prague, and so we hadn't been spending any money at all. We had literally been like just bunking, and from then on we stayed in hotels.
You're like, "I got the money."
I'm employed now.
And then we went back to our hostel that was like one of those hostels that had like 10 people on one side and 10 people on the other side. And we got my iPad and went into the bathroom, me and my best friend that I was backpacking with, and we called everybody. And everybody answered, "I'm so sorry." What was it like defying gravity for the first time, being up there? Was it emotional on your first performance? Was it scary? Was it thrilling? Like, what did you guys feel?
For me, it was 2010. And I think maybe I like blacked out the whole show.
Yeah.
Because I was the understudy at the time, and I only went on twice that whole year. So it was really crazy because I was up there and I had never done anything big like that before. And so, Kendra Casaubon was my first Glinda, and she was such a support for me. So I remember, getting ready, and you're holding the Glinda's hand, and it's kind of like this well wish before you go up there and start flying, because it's such a big, impactful moment for everyone, including us, when we're up there. And I think I really just like blacked out.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard,
yeah.
and it's so big, and once you're up there, all you can really concentrate on is singing and feeling and, trying to give your gift to everyone else.
Blacked out with a huge spotlight in your eyes. A huge spotlight in your eyes, just blinding across. Just like so much light, but yet blacked out. Like totally
It's
true.
like the Men in Black, like little flash where you forget everything. Totally. That's what it's like.
Honestly, same.
Yeah.
Like, truly could not tell you what the first time I did it was like, except for probably the first time I ever did, I was shitting my pants. Bleep that. Just completely scared out of my mind.
Yes.
And then I feel like on Broadway, it's just like a bliss ride. I feel like my whole family, I had 50 people in the audience. So it was like, so everybody who had ever wanted to see me do it was there. It was
50 people?
Yeah.
So special.
That's magic.
It was crazy.
Wow.
Cool. And so it was just like, and everyone was like,
Well, you felt like Lady Gaga. You're like,
It was also your Broadway debut, right?
And it was my Broadway
It was your
debut.
Broadway
Yeah.
debut.
So it was nuts.
That's like even bigger.
It was so crazy.
That's really
It was
wild.
crazy.
Yeah, I definitely had the blackout for sure. And I think over time you get used to it and like you look forward to it almost. Because those first few times I think you're just so like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I have to go. Like I have no more choice anymore. Like
it's
I have to do this. I have to get in. There's no one else around to do this for me. Do you guys remember your first experience like with Wicked? Who was your first Elphaba?
My first alphabet was Shoshana Bean.
Ooh, good one.
It was crazy.
Really
and I
good
remember
one.
just being like, oh my God,
In New
no
York.
one should ever be able to sing like that. It's
Huge, huge
Crazy.
voice.
Huge. Massive.
Yeah. Mine was Adina Menzel.
Ah,
Yeah,
of
I
course.
saw-
The
yeah,
OG?
I saw the OGs.
my first Elphaba was Christy Cates, but and it was in Chicago because I didn't see the show until I actually joined the show.
What?
Yeah, and I was a swing at the time, so I was kind of watching it, not necessarily at like for the Elphaba. I was looking at all the things I was going to have to do, and I was like, what did I sign up for?
My first Elphaba, I have no idea. I saw it on tour in Dallas, and this was probably 2005, 2006.
Internet, do your thing.
But I remember when I first saw it, Defying Gravity finished, and I was just in tears. And my mom was in a different seat. And then I called her on the phone during intermission. I was like, Mom, I have to do this. I have to play this role. And so it was such an inspiring thing, even though I'm so sorry to whoever that Elphaba was that I do not remember who you were. But it touched me in a very deep place, and it was such a special experience to get to see that for the first time.
Yeah.
What I love about that story is that you called her.
I called her on the phone even though she was in the same
She was in the
place.
same place. You're like, I can't wait till I see her. I have to call her.
I think she was in like the mezzanine or something, and I was in the orchestra. 'Cause she was like, "You're gonna sit up close."
Oh, what a good mom.
She knew it was special to me
That
because
is so
I
cute.
just wore out that cast album. That was my first introduction to Wicked in general, was the cast album.
So, speaking of Elphaba, what do you think it is about Elphaba that speaks to you? Why is it so special, do you think?
Obviously, it's the empowerment of being able to like be truthful in what you believe in and like speak out for yourself. But I think for me personally, it's been helpful to play her for so long because it actually helped me be comfortable doing that myself.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
It's given me that, that drive and that wanting to just be a better person in general. It's been such a journey, and I feel like I'm a completely different human.
We've been doing it for so long. You know what I mean? And I feel like I've grown so much as a person, and my Elphaba has grown too. And it's crazy that your character can do that. And it's just because I feel like she's just such an interesting, complex reflection of life and like a round version of somebody who goes on a journey of not believing she's worthy of anything to saying, I'm gonna fly on my own. Like if it's a breakup or a death or someone telling you no or anything like that, and just to be like, I get to go do this tonight. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
It's like built-in therapy.
It's like it is.
It is kind of built-in therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it runs very deep. The first time I heard the music and learned about the character, I was just like, this is me. And through the years, it has been like a growth moment of learning things through the character. You know, I feel like Elphaba at the beginning is very like, I'm going to be good. I'm going to do everything that I need to do in order to get to where I want to be with the wizard. And I definitely have felt that way my whole life. The whole people-pleasing thing and being an outcast at moments in my life, the bullying that happens, feeling isolated and feeling alone. And then growing through that and realizing that we can make our ways on our own. We can be strong within ourselves. And we don't need to depend on outside people to validate us. And so there's been such growth and learning through playing the role that has changed me fundamentally as a human being.
I think it's why it's so universal for everyone, is that there's not one person in this world that has not felt uncomfortable in their own skin at some point in their life. And I think that's why everyone always identifies with Elphaba.
And we're so conditioned to put limits on ourselves.
Ooh,
yes.
You know
I'm
what I
through
mean?
Especially
limits.
as women.
Especially as women.
Especially as women.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
Like-
we always have to make ourselves smaller to make others feel comfortable.
yes.
And
What happens when you break through the limit that you set for yourself? Like we get to see someone do that on stage.
Yeah.
It's so empowering.
Jackie and Jenny, what about your time at Wicked will you never forget? And what lessons from your time in the show do you still carry with you?
Oh my God, I can't even like begin. I feel like you were saying, like over the years of playing this role, it's like I could list the reasons like of each contract that I did essentially, because I was a different human going through a different experience, and I've had ups and some downs and big life changes, like, you know, having a baby and stuff like that fully changes you. But in Elphaba, like, you can work things out. And what I've found really fascinating is like every moment in the show has meant very different things to me. Those lessons I feel like are the most valuable to me, that I'm like, I can still learn something from this character. Like I'm still learning something, because it's, you know, growth is never ending.
the biggest difference between me playing it the first time on Broadway versus the second time on Broadway was so massive. And I've talked about in the past that the first time I played it on Broadway, I was younger, and I felt like I was holding on for dear life as the show happened around me, and I just was like on the ride, and I didn't really enjoy it. I just was like, okay, this is happening and I'm here. And then the second time I was older, and I had finished standing by for Adina in a show called If Then, and as Adina was like at the biggest height of her career with Frozen, and standing by for her, people were very disappointed, you know, when they had to see me. So I had to have the confidence in myself that I was enough to tell the story. And I didn't have that confidence the first time I played Elphaba on Broadway. So then when I went back to play it, I had this new ownership of my own power, and I knew what I needed to do to get myself ready to go on stage. I knew I needed to meditate to get myself grounded before I took stage, center stage, as we do as Elphaba, so that I was in control and got to experience what Elphaba was experiencing in the moment, rather than like a back seat to it.
You were driving the train.
Yeah, I was driving the train for once rather than it driving me. And it was just so much more fun and empowering. And then I got to have so many more aha moments in the moment and learn the lessons rather than just have them happen to me. That was such a gift for me to be able to go back and revisit a character that I thought I knew so well that I didn't. Okay, so you have all been Elphaba on the tour and on Broadway, right? Can you talk about the experiences that you have that makes it different, engaging with different communities from the tour versus Broadway, and what makes those fan interactions so much more special?
I was on tour for 3.5 years, and we did the US and Canada. And so it was a long journey. And it was so incredible going to each city and how excited people coming to the show would be. Because, you know, in some cities, there's not as many opportunities to go see theater in general. And so many people have such a love for Wicked that there is such excitement when they hear that Wicked is coming to town. And each audience has a different personality, too. And to experience like different places and how they experienced Wicked and how they experienced Elphaba and the whole story was just really incredible, because it changes in every context.
Because they're waiting for, I don't know, a year, 2 years for Wicked to come rolling through again. So they're just like ecstatic. And the tickets, it's sold out every night. So I loved being in all the different houses, like, and getting to meet all the local crews. I think you like lighten up a little bit when you're on tour, because you have to be able to like kind of roll with whatever kind of comes through.
tax.
Yeah, exactly. Because, you get a new dresser each city. You have, different crew backstage. You have different orchestra players. So it's kind of everybody's in the same boat kind of thing. And you band together a little bit more, I think, than you do when you are doing the show in a city that everybody lives in their own houses.
The bubble.
The bubble, yeah. I toured for the better part of 10 years.
Really?
Until I landed
In different shows,
Broadway,
yeah.
in different shows.
Wow.
And something that I think is really interesting, Broadway touring companies are performing American musical theater for our country. I think it is so cool to go and perform for an audience in a state in the country that I live. Broadway feels very global to me, but touring feels like we're doing this for the US. Like, that's so cool that I know that the Nashville audience is a Glenda audience.
Yeah.
The Detroit audience is an Elphaba audience. I feel
Audiences are like that.
Yeah,
they have the different
Toronto-
personalities
Different
in
energy,
that, in that way.
Yeah.
Okay, this is for everyone. What impact do you hope Wicked has over the next 20 years? And what do you hope the next generation can take away from this unbelievable story?
God, I hope that just how this is like this beautiful like sisterhood that takes place. We don't really know each other yet. You know each other because we've all donned this green paint, war paint, you know what I mean? And I hope it continues to empower everyone to be and stand in their true authentic self. I think that's what's so beautiful about this show is that you leave wanting to be the best version of yourself. So I hope that it continues to spread that kind of joy and love of knowing that you are enough.
Yeah, I think the next 20 years are still going to be very relevant. I mean, the story is so timeless and it's so recognizable. Everyone knows The Wizard of Oz. It is the 4th longest running show on Broadway. I think it's really incredible that we're still going to be sharing Wicked with future generations. And so many people still come to the show and are seeing their first Broadway show.
Yeah.
And you're right, musical theater is like the essentially American art form. And I think Wicked being like a really great representation of that will ensure that it keeps running and it keeps inspiring other people with the incredible story and the incredible characters that we've all been fortunate enough to be a part of.
Yeah, I mean, it goes hand in hand with like how amazing it is to play Elphaba in such a beautiful show. But I think that the fact that it's just as relevant, if not more, 20 years later than when it opened, like it's obviously going to continue to inspire and build people to want to live in their authentic, true selves. I mean, it sure has for me.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine what it is like for a young person, especially coming to see the show and wondering, can I do that? Can I be on stage and want to play Elphaba? I want to play Elphaba. Mom, I want to do this, Or like, can I walk outside the next day and feel like, I can be myself and it's okay. So I hope that it continues to do what it's doing and goes past the next 20 years because I think it's really important.
What I love about Wicked is that I feel like it encourages compassion and empathy. And so I really hope that as these people, as queer and trans and BIPOC and all of these people, we're looking at this big collective community of human beings and in our otherness trying to find empathy and compassion and ways to connect and care for each other and cheer for each other.
Yes.
Because if you can cheer for Elphaba, you can cheer for someone who is not like you.
Yes, 100%.
Yes.
This trip down memory lane has been so wonderful. I am so grateful for Elphaba and for all the talented women who have had a chance to defy gravity.
I can't believe how big this sisterhood is. There have been so many Elphabas over the last 20 years.
And the list keeps growing.
Playing Elphaba has been such a special experience for all of us, and it's been even more special to watch the Wicked community continue to grow. So thank you for inspiring us to fly free. Hope to see you in Oz soon.
I'm too nervous.